So welcome to another grow guide of FarmAnywhere in our container farm. Today we're going to be growing Bok Choy. We have two varieties specifically today. We're looking at Win Choy from Johnny Seeds and Bok. That's what we're going to be growing in the raft. So we're going to space them 6 inches apart. It's going to take 2 weeks in the nursery probably and another 3 weeks in the grow room. We probably could get away with doing 1 week in the nursery, but we'll have to see in the next video, see how it grows. Another thing to note about Bok Choy, they kind of like a colder weather. And in the farm right now, we're growing basil, which likes warmer weather. So we're gonna have to do a bit of math together and figure out what the sweet spot is so we could grow all of the different crops all at once. So without wasting any more time, we'll get right into it. I'm gonna gown up, clean the environment as usual, put some gloves on, and then we're gonna send the seeds inside the rock roll tray before we send it to the nursery. Let's go. All right, so we're ready to start seeding now that we've cleaned up the environment and gowned up. I pre-soaked the rock wool seed with hot water and also pH'd it to 5.8, so that way it's nice and neutral pH for the growth of the plants. And then I'm gonna follow up with this tool, which is a seeding tool, to go and put 1 seed per hole in this case inside the rock wool and seed it like that. All right, so although this tool is great for certain applications and certain seeds, sometimes it does put too many seeds in each hole, and because these ones have a little bit of a coating as well on it, it seems like it's seeding more than what we want. So in this case, we're going to switch to another tool, a tweezer, and we're just going to grab a seed and basically just manually put it into the rock wool. Also, another thing to note is that we're doing it manually like that because we're only starting 2 trays of Bok Choy. But let's say, for example, we were to do 1,000 at a time, then it's worth investing in a machine that will kind of do a lot of the process like that. And that's it for the seedling process. So now, once there is those 10 by 20 trays, we're gonna bring them in the seedling room at the back of the container, because that's where the seedlings are at its weakest. And therefore we need to protect them as much as possible from the environment. So we're just gonna make sure that the 10 by 20 trays are facing the right way so we see what the cultivars are. If there is a lot number, we could put it on there as well so we could keep track. In this case, we don't have one assigned just yet. Another thing too that's important, we will add these humidity dome trays, just like so, on top of them. And that will allow us to build up some humidity inside the dome. Why is that important? Well, because they're at their beginning stages. You don't want to stress them out too much, trying to look for humidity, for example. And therefore, by having it covered like that, you kind of help the development process. But you got to keep a close eye on it, because as they grow and mature, you're going to want to acclimatize them to the main grow room's environment and its light so that you don't shake them too much, which would slow their growth. And so what we do is that, like this one here, we'll either just crack it open so that the humidity leaves, or we'll just outright remove the dome from the seedlings and allow them to acclimatize to the environment that they're in. So that's the strategy for the nursery part in the back here. Another thing too is cleanliness is always key, right? So make sure that your nursery, your trays, your domes are always clean. That will help a lot when it comes to mildew or algae that may grow on the rock wool. And also, once they're growing and you see the first true leaves, you want to add a little bit of fertilizer to them so that they don't become yellow and therefore may cause some deficiencies later on in the future. So there's a special little mix that we'll do, and we'll show probably you guys in another video how you can do that and make sure that they get their appropriate nutrients for their growth process. And that's it for starting seedlings when it comes to Bok Choy. Fairly simple, looks a lot like other processes. And then in the next video, we'll look at feeding them and transferring them as well into the main grow room where they're going to grow the 3 weeks. So right here, they're going to be only in this room for about a week or 2 weeks. Today in this video, we're taking them out of the nursery, putting them on one of the rafts. We're going to be setting up the fertilizer for it, setting up the water level, transplanting them into the main trays, and setting up the light intensity that we need for the first week of growth. So without wasting any time, let's get right into it. Okay, so I transferred them from the nursery into the main grow room, and usually about 72 hours before I do the transplant, if I have enough space, I will transfer them underneath the lights that they're going to be growing. Multiple reasons for that. The main one is I want these seedlings to be accustomed to the light and the light intensity and not to shock them too much. So we're gonna need these tools right here, and that allows us to dim each and every single zone. So when we put them in, we're gonna lower the light intensity, and every single day we're gonna go up by about 20% until they're full power, and that way they get slowly accustomed to the new light cycle. Second thing to watch out when you're doing that though, is that now they're exposed to the stress of a main grow room that's supposed to help them grow faster, as fast as possible. And therefore they may get some shock. So you wanna be careful for that with certain plants and certain cultivars. These ones here are doing fine. Another thing too I wanna point out is if you look at the different varieties that we have here, so we're growing two varieties, Win Choy and Bopak, all in the Bok Choy family. The colors are a little bit different between this tray and this tray. And this is a good example to take note of, is that the nursery and the seedling part is used as a tool to create a bit of a buffer so that you can only transplant into the main room when you're ready. But if you wait too long, then they start running out of nutrients that you gave them from the beginning and what they get from the seed. And therefore they start to change color like that. So you don't wanna wait till that, or you wanna add fertilizer to be able to stop the color change that you're seeing here. So really what you want is for it to look like this, and those are healthy seedlings ready to be harvested with their baby leaves out. And then you can also see closer that there's a true leaf that's about to develop as well too. And that's a great sign that they're ready to be transplanted. We're gonna go to our main trays here. And when we clear out the plants, we do a bit of a cleaning, but like anything in a container farm or any agricultural equipment, whether it's indoor vertical farm or even traditional ag, cleanliness is key. And so we're gonna go ahead and use a little bit of sodium hydrochloride. You could also use Sanitol. You could also use hydrogen peroxide. And we're just gonna spray the tray across the board, like so, and do a nice wipe down to make sure that everything is nice and sanitized from any sort of bacteria. Last thing, last check before we start transplanting is we're gonna set our water level. So for Bok Choy, we're looking to about 3/4 inch of water in the tray. So about 1.9, 2 centimeters of water across the board. Now, that's quite a lot of water if you consider the nutrient film technique, where it's supposed to be just a few millimeters of water. But for Bok Choy, they like it a little bit more in water, and therefore we're gonna increase the water. But this tool right here that comes with all of our container farms, you can decide the height of the water and basically give the plants exactly what they need when it comes to the height of the water. So look at our grow guide for that. For Bok Choy, we want 2 centimeters, and that's exactly what we have already set up here. So now that we're in the lobby, we're gonna prepare the water to fill in the tray. Now, normally we run the system at about 1.3 to 1.5 EC to help the growth, especially that we're adding CO2 as well. But when you introduce seedlings to the system, a lot of fertilizer can shock them and can be a bit too much and cause leaf burn. Therefore, what we're gonna do is dial it back slightly for the first 2 days of the seedlings being in the tray to about 1.0 or 0.9 EC. If you wanna know more what EC is, it's electroconductivity. It's basically how much salt is in the water, but we'll make another video to explain to you on that. So what we're gonna do first is that we're gonna have a look at our data, and we're at 1.06, which is great. We could do that, but just for purpose of the video, we're just gonna turn on the Neurovine app right here, and we're gonna turn on fresh water. So that will introduce some fresh water from the city into the system. And then we're also gonna turn on the recirculating mode to have the water go through the entire irrigation skid for purification purposes and mixing it. So it's a little loud to do that on the video. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna wait for the cycle to finish. We're gonna bring it down to 1.00, and then we'll continue the video. Okay, so now we're actually at 0.99, so 1.0 is what we're running for, so we'll stop the recirculating cycle. And then what we're gonna do is introduce root enhancers. So it's basically beneficial bacteria that we're adding to the water to help the root develop faster. And of course, that will help the entire system. If your irrigation skid in your container farm has either ozone, UV light, or both, it's important to turn those off, because if we're adding beneficial bacteria to the system, then the ozone and the UV will kill them instantly. And so we're gonna wanna turn those off for the next 72 hours, let the beneficial bacteria do its effect on the system, and then turn them back on to keep the whole system clean. So we've already turned off those systems now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna return the recirculating system on again so that it mixes. And then next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into our system right here and click on pumps. And we see we have root builder right here. So we're going to click on root builder and we're going to do a quick dose. And we're going to add 150 milliliters of the root builder. So again, I'm going to return the recirculating system on right now. And we're going to get root enhancers into the system. So we see the system running. And for 52 seconds, it's going to add root enhancers to our water. And then we're going to be ready to introduce it to the system. All right, so now that everything's been mixed, I'm just going to turn off recirculating. And then I'm going to set it on the normal irrigation cycle that's fully automated. Of course, Nursery, it's its own company that we use here at FarmAnywhere for irrigation system. You can program this however you want. You can do special recipes, you can do special different mixing methods and things like that, and mix and match. For the purpose of the video, I just did it manually, but we do have a rule where basically we just say start new raft, and it just basically does its own thing from there on. So we've done the recirculating. One thing to point as well too is that our EC went up slightly from 0.99 to 0.02, and that's totally normal when it comes to going up a little bit. Even though it's not fertilizer that we're officially introducing, it does have some salt content to the bacteria, and it's normal that it increases. So the next thing we're going to do now is go back into the main grow room and start filling the trays in. All right, so now that the irrigation skid is prepared and we have the beneficial bacteria added to it, one caveat I forgot to show in the last one, you want to make sure that you have at least 25 to 50 gallons in your tank, because depending on your water level, that's how much water you're going to need to fill in the tray system. So now that we're ready to fill in the tank, we're going to go into a Nursery app and we're going to turn on an irrigation cycle, which turns on the irrigation cycle for all the farm. And then we're going to reach to that lever. And now we're introducing water to the system. We can slide this back on top like so. And you don't need to do this normally. This was just for the video. You just leave that on. The irrigation tray is gonna start filling up. And now I'm gonna grab the Bok Choy, start transferring it. See you in the lobby. All right, so we have 2 trays of Bok Choy right now. So this method here that I'm going to show you guys is the method that you do when you're working with 2 people. So you have one person in the lobby or one person in the nursery doing the exact same motion, and then you give this tray to the person in the main grow room for them to transplant themselves into the tray. When you're working alone, it's a different technique, and we'll show you that a little bit later on. So simple process. Of course, everything is always as clean as possible. I put gloves on for this step. And I'm just gonna grab some rock wool here and separate the trays like so. And then I'm just gonna grab a basket and just simply transfer them like so in there. Now, it's a good process that if, for example, in the seedling stage, you had put too many seeds into one square, like we see with this tray right here, certain square has way too many seeds. We're gonna wanna pick the best one, the strongest one, remove it and put that into the tray as well. So just a little caveat on that. So we're gonna fill all this in, and then we're gonna go into the main grow room and transplant them. So now that we're in the main grow room, it's time to transplant the Bok Choy into the main tray. Remember earlier when I said that the method that I was showing was if you're a team, so you have one person in the lobby in the nursery doing the separation and the placement into the basket. I'm gonna quickly show you what it looks like if you're alone. Of course, no method fits all. If you could do a team of 3 people and doing exactly what I'm about to show you, there's no rules. You do what you are comfortable with. So we're gonna take our tray right here. And by the way, another good sign that the seedlings are ready for transplant is when roots come out from the bottom like this. So you can kind of lift your rock wool like that and you'll be able to see it. When the roots come out, you know that that's a good sign that they're past their environment and you need to transplant them. So we're just gonna take them out like that. And then we could put them either in a basket like this, or alternatively, if you don't wanna use a basket, you don't have to. You could take your rock wool and just place it directly inside the tray like so. Just know that the reason why we use baskets is to prevent the light from hitting the irrigation water, the fertigation. And by doing so, you also save yourself problems with algae and bacteria. But if you're very comfortable and you're an advanced grower, you can always do so without the baskets, save yourself a little bit of time, because you know about techniques that will maintain a sterile irrigation water, like UV light, like ozonation, like hydrochloric acid, to make sure that the water stays as clean as possible, free of bacteria, and that will save you a lot. So that's advanced techniques. Okay, so now we've done the transplant that. So when we say 2-to-1 planting ratio, is basically we plant on one plant site, and then we skip a site, plant again, skip a site like so, and that gives them enough space for them to grow. When we say 1-to-1 planting ratio, is basically we have the seedlings lined up like that. So depending on how much spacing that they need, you may want to opt for different and increase your density. For bok choy, we like to do 2-to-1. Again, you do you, there's no set rules. And then what we can do to prevent, again, algae, is we're just gonna go and fill in these spots. One thing you never want to forget as well is at the beginning, we write the name, planting date, and the lot number. So you'll take your tray, remove this tape, and you're also going to replace it right here on your tray right here too. And that allows us to know exactly what's growing here, when it was planted, who's planted it, what brand name it is, and the lot number as well too. So you just remove that when you're finished, and that's good traceability. So let's continue on and do the entire tray. All right, so we're finished transplanting all the bok choy into the trays. We've put the tags on so we know exactly what is what. We were 2 mostly. At one point we were almost 3, but it took 45 minutes to transplant into the tray right here, including setting up the 2-to-1 ratio. So now what we want to do is measure our light intensity and make sure that we don't stress or burn our plant. What's interesting about bok choy is that you don't need to have a lot of lights. So if you go online, there's a bunch of guides or grow guides as well. We'll say what the DLI requirement is. DLI stands for daylight integral. So what you can do is there's DLI calculators online right here. And so we know that bok choy has a DLI of 12. And therefore I put 12, and then my light cycle for the entire container is 18.6. So I have the lights on at 18 and darkness at 6. So I'm putting that. And then I played around with my UMOs, my intensity, to achieve 12.96. So a little bit more than the DLI that I want. So now I want to make sure that my tray has 200 ppfd of light intensity. So how are we going to go about finding that out? Well, all of our farms comes with this little sensor right here. It's a ppfd sensor. And basically I will just put it right in the middle and get a reading. And then we're going to go in the lobby, go on the TrollMaster, and see what the reading is. All right, so I'm on the TrollMaster screen here, and you see light intensity, ppfd. So we're at 341, so that's way too much. We're looking for 200. So we're going to go in the farm and basically dial it down to 70%, which adds up to 200. So right here we got the dimmer. So we're going to go zone 3, and we're going to dim it down to 70%. And I'm going to go on every single one of them. This one's already at 70%. Just bring it down to 70. Perfect. And now we're going to go back. All right, so we're back on the screen here, and we're looking at right around 208 ppfd. And that's excellent. That's what we want. So why go with DLI and why go with ppfds for the amount, for the numbers? Well, one, you don't want to burn your plant. Second is that it actually translates into profit increasing for you and savings as well on both ends. Because, so let's say the lights are 100 watts and you dial it down to 30%. It's 70 watts, and therefore you're saving on the power on the lights. Another thing too, every watt of light is equal to 3.14 BTU. And so every time you have those extra light, your HVAC has to work that much harder in order to keep the farm cool. So that's why all this translates into higher profits for you, and also like just better efficiency overall. Now, it's not a one-size-fits-all. We're setting up the ppfd right now for at that height, but as they grow higher, they're going to get closer to the light, and therefore the intensity goes up. And so you're going to want to be able to dial it back down every single week or twice a week and make sure to give them the right amount of DLI that they need. That's for bok choy. Certain crops, as they grow older, actually needs more daylight integral, more DLI to compensate for their rapid growth, like basil, for example. but watch the basil video on how that works. And that's it. That's how we transplant from the nursery into the main grow room Bok Choy. We have 2 more videos coming up, how we care for them as they grow older, in terms of pest control, if there is any, and in terms of disease or deficiencies by reading the plant and caring for them overall through their growth. And the video after that will be how to harvest them, how to pack them for retail versus wholesale, including tagging and weighing. So if you want to see these videos, subscribe to our channel, like this video as well. And if you have any comments, write them below. We'll do our best to get to them and answer your questions, and maybe eventually make a Q&A for all the questions that keeps coming back. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.